we met up and brought along Ferry and Tiesto to the meeting, and unknown Armin van Buuren. They wanted us to manage the three of them for England and Ibiza. So Giles actually did most of the work on that.
Yeah.
But
I know
the deal that we did, the deal that we did with all the super clubs, they couldn't have Tiesto or Ferry until they had Armin. So that was our job. We sold Armin in, and then take Armin, and then we will let you have Ferry and Tiesto. Ferry's first booking, Armin's first booking, Tiesto's first booking. Their first bookings in the UK were all at Peach.
A lot of people don't know this, and this is kind of why I wanted to do this.
But you walk through that tunnel.
That tunnel, yeah, unmistakable tunnel.
Look, and you just and then you got on stage. And that original DJ box, I mean, it wasn't even really a stage. It was on the stage area, but it was a tiny little fucking DJ box like we had at Gulliver's in the early 80s. But, you know, you put the needle on the record and the drum beat went like this, and, you know, then you just smashed it till 6 o'clock. In fact, the first ever, and you could say this, the first actual ever house record was probably...
So welcome back, Graham, to part 2 of our podcast. As I said before, we regularly do a double episode with people with such history as yours. Now, where do you think we left it?
I think we left it bizarrely on talking about my soul years, and I was talking about Chris Hill, who was, in my opinion and a lot of people's, the UK's real first superstar DJ. He was an Essex boy. He kind of ran back in the 70s, what was called then the Soul Mafia, along with former Radio 1 presenter Jeff Young, who was doing the show after Robbie and before Tongy took over. There was Tom Holland, Froggy, of course, rest in peace, Froggy, Sean French, Chris Brown, Owen Washington, who's actually just written a book. I just bought his book on Amazon, which is, I haven't started to read it yet, but that's going to be an interesting. He was one of the Windrush children, so it's either called From Black to Coloured or From Coloured to Black, something like that. So it was Owen. He was the only fun enough. I was thinking about this the other day. Okay, so in the hip hop thing, you had like Max and Dave, but it was always about Westwood. He was the considered the UK pioneer. Dave Pearce used to play hip hop on his Radio London days back in the day. Read about Westwood in the news today. He's up on some serious charges.
Yeah, I read that as well.
And yeah, and then and in the soul scene, and in the reggae scene, there was I can't remember his name, the guy on Radio London, black dude, but they're all about Rodigan. Rodigan spearheading, and in the soul scene, it was all white boys playing black music, kind of. But after we spoke about Chris, and then 2 weeks after that, he passed away.
Yeah,
he'd been ill for some time. But he was from Essex. He was tall, skinny, very, very loud, very flamboyant. Used to play the tambourine, the trumpet. We, of course, always talked on the mic back in those days. And the only comparison to give people an idea of Chris Hill, but Chris Hill was like he was instrumental in the whole soul and jazz funk thing. He started Enzyme Records, which brought us Light of the World and Beggar and Co. and all these, and Incognito kind of down the line, although Incognito was signed to Talking Loud. If my memory serves me correctly, Bluey, who was one of the main guys in Incognito, I'm sure was with Light of the World, but we're talking 54 years ago, 50
Yeah.
years ago. And I don't mean this with any disrespect to Danny Gould, but Danny was never a DJ. He's become a DJ after promoting Clockwork Orange. But he's like the 2025 version of Chris Hill. The way he dresses, the way he is, that look. Yeah, and
To get a picture
but
of it.
I sent you a photo. Yeah, I sent you a photo earlier. Chris Hill's the one on the far, as you look at the photo on the far left, tall with the little tie and the suit, and yeah. Anyway, I think
So
that's where we finished.
what was next after all that scene? Where did you go then? What did you start doing? Because you were working. I remember I've gone back on our part one. And you were working some serious hours. You were doing 7, 8, 9 hours every day, driving, studio, radio.
Yeah, that's
7 days a week,
yeah,
6 hours a night. It was
yeah,
just you. So you really did an
yeah,
apprenticeship, and I rewatched it this morning
yeah.
actually.
I really did, and of course, it all started a long time before that. In the late '60s, early '70s, I created the Funky Roadshow, which was a mobile, for want of a better word, it was a fucking mobile disco. But we only played soul. Well, I won't say we only played soul music. We played a little bit of everything, but it was called the Funky Roadshow. But it was me and also, he was a good friend of mine, and he passed away after being ill for some years, Duncan Uren. Yeah, and then when I realised I was the only one buying all the records, I was like, I'm spending my money. Yeah, bye-bye, Dunk. But Duncan went on to do some good things back then. So, yeah, so Gulliver's all through the 90s, and then I landed the Soul Show on Capitol in 85. And then I was with Radio London on their Radio London Soul Night Out, and then eventually joined Kiss. I didn't know for two until 2 weeks. Kiss launched on September 1. I didn't know until 2 weeks before that I'd actually got a show. I kind of had helped Gordon a little bit with the application, because I had some knowledge that I'd gained. But yeah, they were testing Mark Webster with various people, and luckily enough, I got the gig. But that and the chart show, they were the two fucking gigs that I never wanted, because
Yeah,
they're
you said that
just
before.
by definition. They're the most commercial, and then I discovered house, and yeah, and then Peach came along, which was obviously a big thing in my career. Still continues to be a big thing in my career.
How did you discover house music?
Do you know
Because it's a
what?
big.
We all
You discovered it at the same time as everybody. It all just happened.
uh, no, I think we all okay. I'm not sure if I said so. Basically, house. The name house music comes from the warehouse in Chicago,
Yes, you
and
mentioned
people
that.
would
Yeah.
go into would go raving at the warehouse, and then they would go into the local record shops in Chicago and say, I want the tunes they play at the house. And you wouldn't believe how many people do not even know the origins of
Well,
the
I didn't, did
term
I?
house music. But no, you didn't.
No.
Slap on the wrist. But of course, basically it was, okay, a lot of it, I'm not talking about Detroit techno, but a lot of it sampled, all those. We were playing house in the 70s, but it was called disco
Disco.
then.
Yeah.
Although obviously house was four to the floor. Disco was not four to the floor. If you look at tracks like Tavares, Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel, Joe Tex, Ain't Gonna Bump That Big Fat Woman. But then, of course, you also, then you had the South Soul label and you had acts like Sylvester, and everything was four to the floor. In fact, the first ever, and you could say this, the first actual ever house record was probably Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, The Love I Lost, because the in-house drummer for Philadelphia International All Stars, which was the biggest label in one of the biggest labels in the 70s. It bought us the 3 Degrees and Dexter Wansel and actually, in April next year, Jeff Young, who was on Radio 1, he's involved with can't remember, Ralph T. They were huge names in soul in the 70s and 80s. They're bringing a 33-piece orchestra, the sound of Philadelphia, and it's going to be at the O2 in Hammersmith. Dexter Wansel is the conductor, and I'm not sure that I'm allowed to say the names, but
No, you don't have to divulge any information, mate.
Yeah, some of the vocalists that come. Anyway, so it was the in-house drummer of Philadelphia International All Stars. When on The Love I Lost, I saw this interview with him, and he's getting in the groove, and you know what? I'm just going to keep this four to the floor, and that was the first ever four to the floor record. Harold Melvin,
Interesting.
and
You're
so
like
it was his.
You're walking down encyclopedia.
It was essentially house, but no, I mean, so all through so disco got killed in 79, 80. The soul DJs in the UK, we were moved in the late 70s. We were moving into jazz, funk, and stuff like that. But then America declared disco is dead because of the war against gays, HIV. So the BPMs dropped. We were already at 128 with all that Sylvester, all the South Soul stuff, like Double Exposure 10%. That was the first ever commercial 12-inch track. That was about 122, I think. But anyway, the BPMs dropped to 90, and thus Soul to Soul was born, Imagination. And if you look at it through the 80s, the BPMs just got gradually faster. And then by the mid-80s, one of the big labels was Solar, the sound of Los Angeles records. So that had The Whispers, Midnight Star, and blah, blah. And the BPMs have started to go up. And then, and we would all, most of us bought our tunes at, was it called Groove? It was in Soho. Was it called Groove Records in Soho? We would go there to buy all our import soul. It was the one, I'm sure it was called Groove. It was one of the, yes, I think back then it was the only shop I used. And I always almost remember the name of the woman who owned it. Jean. I think it was Jean. Wow. How did I remember?
Wow, Graham.
Anyway.
Very impressive.
All of a sudden, this new music came along. So to quote LTJ Bookham, for all of us, it was a logical progression. That's the name of a Bookham album, by the way.
Yes, of course.
It was a logical progression moving from this solar, 10 City, That's the Way Love Is, that kind of thing, into Chicago house, because it came from the same place that disco came from. Black, gay, Hispanic. And of course we embraced it because it was something new, and it was, and the BPMs were back up there again. Because, I was at Gulliver's, well, the tempo certainly in the early 80s was, Dennis Edwards, Don't Look Any Further, 95 BPM, Rufus Shaka Khan, Ain't Nobody 100 More. They're just the obvious classics. But white people can't dance to that tempo. And so it was musically for all of us, it was just a logical progression. But I actually stayed true to my soul roots, and because I was at Gulliver's, I was married, and then when Kiss started in 1990, I was still effectively a soul boy. I never got into the for my sins, and I really wish that I had been a part of that. The early M25 raves, 98, 88, 89. I didn't go to any of those. And that was, but that was being 10 years older than, or 15 years older than everybody else at the time. So it
Yeah,
was a
you've been
long
doing
time
it a lot
before I took
longer. It wasn't kind of new to you, and you were in your own different circle of friends and scene and influence. So, and so then obviously the club nights started popping up that were playing house music, and Peach and those sort of nights were cropping up, and Club UKs and all those sort of venues,
Yeah,
which you have
Club
had an
UK's
involvement with.
Yeah, well, Club UK came later. It was originally Hollywood's,
Hmm.
Hollywood in Romford, and they used to have a Friday night called Culture Shock, which was pure house. So my journey into house, it was there, but it kind of never really, for me, exploded until 92 when Malibu came on board as a sponsor, and I got an extra hour on the chart show, and I was meant to use it to play all the tracks that I thought were going to the dance top 40 next final week, but I didn't. I used it to play all my fucking new house music, and it was Russell from the Flying Squad, who then went on to do Clubvision, said, more people are talking about your 1 hour than they are about, sorry Danny, sorry Jules, but and Pete, that everyone's talking about your 1 hour, and so that led when Danny went. I'm not sure who went first to Radio 1, Danny or Jules, but when whoever went first, I inherited their Friday night or Saturday night show,
And
and
that's
of
what you
course
wanted, isn't
I'm a
it?
houseboy.
And that's what you wanted. You wanted that Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted that, and then Friday night Kiss came along. And that took me out of London, took me across the UK, because Kiss then was owned by EMAP, who owned 18 radio stations in key cities like Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, Sheffield. So it took me up north. And by the end of 92, I was a fucking full on house head, and I still don't think I'd even ever taken a drug at that time.
Wow. And
I
when did
think that
Peach start?
that 93, September
93. And that's when it all
1993.
began.
Yeah, yeah. Kiss
Okay.
was so impressed with what I was doing, with how my name was now out in London's club circles, that they wanted me to front a night, and it was at Legends, and up until that time it had been Jules's night, Fresh, and I'm not sure why they wanted to move Jules out of that. But so I needed to, because I didn't have any confidence, I brought in Dave Lambert, who was one of the residents of Fresh. I needed to carry on something from Fresh on the Friday to Peach, not to alienate that existing crowd. And then I brought in Darren Pierce, who I'd been playing with a lot during that previous 18 months, who just absolutely blew me away as a
Mm,
DJ. He was
great
playing all
DJ.
this stuff that nobody else was playing. I thought, fuck, I'll have Darren on. And then Craig DeMeck, I think then Dave Lambert brought Craig DeMeck in. Dave Lambert actually came up with the name, and thus Peach was born. And it was my third gig that night, so I was already like working a lot. I had done Oxford, and then, fun enough, Hollywood in Romford for Culture Shock. And we're driving to Legends. My set time was 3:30 till 5, something like that, last set. And I said to Simon, who was my driver then, it's going to be fucking empty. It's going to be a disaster. They closed the doors at 12 o'clock, full house, and we had a full house every fucking week. And then we outgrew Legends and we went to the Café, and by which time, yeah, I really had made a name for myself. And then I got involved in, oh God, what was the TV show that used to air on Channel 3? I was a presenter on that every 3 weeks out of 4. Oh, why can't I think what it's called?
Was it like a clubbing
Fuck.
TV show?
Yeah, it was a clubbing show. It was, I think it came after The Hitman and Her. And
What day of the week was it on?
God. It aired Saturday night, Sunday
That's right.
morning.
I wouldn't know it then. I'd be out.
On ITV. One of the I remember one of them, we did it in Wales, and I played Ibiza Wednesday, Thursday, flew back into the UK Friday. Completely off my fucking nut, and I'm going, sorry, I got Ibiza flu and blah 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 blah. But yeah, I can't. Oh, anyway, the name will come to me, I'm sure. As
Yeah, I'll do a bit of research as well, because Saturdays I wasn't in. I know ever, so I never watched a bit of telly throughout the 90s, so I wouldn't know that. And you know what? When I find out what it is, it'll probably go, oh, that's what it is. And with
yeah, go
on. With so that's how your involvement with Peach began. Now, then you obviously, Peach is very much renowned for Camden Palais. As Palais, whatever.
It was Hammersmith Palais and like Filet and Camden Palace, now Coco, of course. Oh God. From so we went Legends 93, 94 to Café de Paris 95, 95, then to Leisure Lounge in Holborn. Well, they've all gone now. All these,
they haven't they? Yeah,
that's 3 clubs. 3 clubs. And then Camden Palace, I guess, was 96, and we were there till 2004 when new owners bought the Palace. They didn't want this high profile druggy night in high profile radio promoted event. And yeah, they kicked us out. We went to Studio 33, I think it was, but we went south of the river. Bad move. We probably should have. I've never thought about this before, but I actually don't know why we just didn't go back to the Leisure Lounge, because the Leisure Lounge, right, or even the Café.
Everything in hindsight, though, isn't it? Especially in the music business,
yeah.
You know. So,
but it also wasn't my call, because it was owned by Kiss, so I was just the front man.
So Peach was owned by Kiss. I didn't realize that. That's something else that I knew. I knew it had something to do with it, but I didn't know they had the ownership. And how would you describe the Peach nights back in the 90s? They were crazy. I went to a few. I know what they were like, because I went to a lot of them.
They were just fucking amazing.
Yeah, they were, weren't they?
You know, even the first ones. Legends Cafe, Leisure Lounge, Trance hadn't even come along. The venue's fitted though, because when we were at the Leisure Lounge, that was the kind of big Tony DeVee period, and that venue was conducive to like harder house, and maybe even a bit of tidy tracks and stuff like that. And then Legends, then Camden, being this beautiful old theatre, was just perfect for when Trance came in. And it was, so it's often it would also be my third gig on a Friday night, and I'd get there at 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4, exhausted, bit off my head, walk, think, fuck, I've got to play another 2 hours. Walk, but you walk through that tunnel
That tunnel,
and
yeah,
you
the
and
unmistakable
you
tunnel.
look and you just you just go on. And then you got on stage, and that original DJ box, I mean, it wasn't even really a stage, it was on the stage area, but it was a tiny little fucking DJ box like we had at Gulliver's in the early 80s. But you put the needle on the record and the drum beat went like this, and providing the first mix was in, sometimes it wasn't. Yeah, then you just smashed it till 6 o'clock.
Now, I was just about to say that people, they partied till 6 properly and
And
further onwards, but
it
nowadays,
was different.
yeah,
And it was different, was it? Because then the only drug tester was for alcohol, the breathalyzer. There were no swab tests. So, you know, I remember doing some normal, terrible things and getting in the car and drive. But people drove because
everyone drove.
they
Yeah,
might be wide-eyed or sniffy, but the police had no idea and they had no testing. So
no,
people
alcohol
drove.
free
This is
as
why
well.
now, and of course they were alcohol-free because they're on other substances. So um, it was Brit, and that's why I think now, although obviously not the Peach events and Clockwork and all the old brands that have come back, obviously catering to an older audience. They love the day raves, but then when you look at people like venues like Drumshed, 15,000 people, their main license only goes till 11. You can go till 2. I think you have to pay more, but most of those big techno events or whatever events that go into Drumshed, they're day events, and the youngsters want it because they now can't drive to a gig and get fucked up. So you got to rely on public transport. Because if you're going to get even an Uber, if you live in Brentwood or somewhere
Yeah,
like that, it's going to cost you a fortune. So
and the tube didn't
day
run.
raves.
I mean, I know the tube's changed a little bit in the last few years, but back in the day, it didn't run at night, did it? It was midnight because I used to
No,
work for them
no,
the
and
underground.
yeah,
12:30 last tube, and that was even worse on a
yeah,
Sunday. So, um,
yeah. Now,
yeah,
now they
it
have
was horrendous
24
getting
hours,
home.
but not on time. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what have you got any particular unforgettable memories from Peach?
Yeah. Ferry's first booking, Armin's first booking, Tiesto's first booking. Their first bookings in the UK were all at Peach because me and my old business partner Giles, rest his soul, we ran Good As Records
Is that Giles
and
Sawyer?
management, and Giles Sawney, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it all.
I know Giles.
It came out of yeah, bless him. He was my best friend until, fun enough, he came here and we had a terrible row, and then I never spoke to him after that, and then he passed. But yeah, one day I had this phone call from David Lewis, who's DLP, one of the biggest management companies on the planet. And this was 97. And he said, I need you to come to Amsterdam. And so we met up and brought along Ferry and Tiesto to the meeting, and unknown Armin van Buuren. I knew of Armin because of one track, probably the one before Communication. And anyway, so they wanted us to manage the three of them for England and Ibiza. So Giles actually did most of the work on that.
Yeah. I
But
know
the
Giles.
deal that we did, with all the super clubs, Gatecrasher, Slinky Passion, whatever. They couldn't have Tiesto or Ferry until they had Armin. So that was our job. We sold Armin in, and then take Armin, and then we will let you have Ferry and Tiesto.
A lot of
So
people don't know this,
having
Graham, you
those
know.
three for the first
A
what?
lot of people don't know this, and this is kind of why I wanted to
No, I know.
do this, because
Right.
you're obviously quite
And
you don't talk about it a lot, do you?
do you know what? No, because, it was then and this is now,
This
and
is
I've
now.
calmed down. But your question was night show, and then, of course, when we had Oakenfold for 2 birthdays, um,
Hmm.
the venue was licensed for 1,500 people. I mean, it took more, but, venues are licensed because of the amount of fire door exits, and Coco, Camden Palace, didn't have that many. So, but we had 2,300 people in for for I can't remember even what birthday. It would have been 93, 94, 95, 96. So it'd been the 5th and 6th, or the 6th and 7th birthdays, Pete's birthdays. And funny enough, um, both of them the week before Oki had played Ministry for their birthday. And after the first one he did for Pete, she said, and although we're now doing a lot with Ministry because we've got a whole new team, they've revamped the club. He said, "This blows absolutely anything that I've ever done away before." And it was JM from Kiss, so he was the one that came up with the whole idea. And I went out to the front desk and pleaded with JM, "Please stop letting any more people in, because it's like this. No
Yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
can dance." But of
You're only
course,
going to get
Kiss
bad
was
feedback.
corporate. Exactly, and it was, it's corporate. It's all about the money. So now, now I run it with Chris Bain and Eric Pengelly. Eric's kind of more silent partner. We're very aware of how we want our customers to feel on the dance floor, so we don't oversell any event. But
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were and of course the final night at Camden was so tearful. It was end of an era.
yeah, yeah. There was a lot of that. I mean, obviously, you've given as well through Peach a lot of younger DJs opportunities and new DJs opportunities. Was that something that you'd consciously set up to do, or is it just something that happened naturally?
I think it was just something that happened naturally. I wanted to bring great DJs. I wanted, we had a music policy, and I remember, we had the upstairs room, which I'm not sure if it was Adrian DH before. No, I think Adrian was there from first, because the second room at Leisure Lounge was the garage room. And I think when we decided not to proceed anymore with that, I made it a label room. So I brought in all like Hooge, maybe
Okay.
even Slip and Slide. I can't remember the cool
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
labels, and
yeah.
they hosted the
Because they
upstairs
were
room
knocking out
because I
so many
wanted
tunes,
people.
weren't they? At that particular
Yeah,
era, they were
yeah,
knocking out so many records every month. Because I remember used to going
yeah,
record shopping, and it used to be prolifically those sort of labels. So that's pretty smart
yeah,
move.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
And
but you
now
know
there's
what
so many
happened after
labels.
that? You know what happened after?
What
I
was
used
that?
to buy my records from City Sounds and Tag, and Quaff, and it was Thursday. You drive around. It was great. Thursday was record shopping day, and it was such a buzz, because all the shops had, like, they kept you, like, sometimes only 5 imports came in. So there was like me, Jules, Pete. Um, for example, they'd have our bags, and for sure, if there was only 5, they made sure that we got those
Because they
tracks
get the
before anyone else.
airplay.
And so they get the airplay, yeah,
Yeah.
and we had to have them. We were, without sounding big-headed, we were trailblazers. We were
Yeah.
we were playing the music first. We had to, but it was in Tag, and I went in there one Thursday. They said, you know, "We fucking hate you." So I said, "Oh, why is that?" He said, "Because people don't come in with a with like want to listen to records, they just come in with and say, "We want what Graham Gold plays." Well, if Graham Gold played it on the show last Saturday, that's what we want. And I thought, wow, you can't get a bigger accolade
Yeah.
than that. And people's shopping lists were tracks that I'd played on the show,
No,
and of course,
I remember my friends
80%.
used to do that. That my friends used to literally listen to shows and write down the names of the tracks and then take them to record shops. I've
Yeah.
seen that. That's not a new thing for me. I've
Then
definitely seen people do that. Is there anybody that you noticed coming through who is now a star, that you spotted there really early and you went, they're definitely going to become, besides the Juleses and the Tongs and obviously there was a
well, they
era
were
afterwards.
well, they were already there. I
Yeah.
mean, so as far as Peach, as booking DJs into Peach, well, other than obviously Armin was unknown, loads, but it was more on the show. Because on I had two shows. Well, one period I was on air 7 days a week, which was why I never went to Radio One. And the Radio One controller told me that. He said, "I really want you on Radio One, but you're the voice of Kiss." So I never made Radio One. I wonder what my career, how it would have turned out. But yeah, so I invite especially in the early 90s, the 92, we were all, it was kind of dominated by strictly, obviously you had the early UK piano house with Hyper Go-Go and whatever. But it was also very much a kind of garage, US garage. Like, so it was strictly rhythm and nervous, and there were two guys that were really pushing that scene, and that was Matt Jam Lamont and Carl
Yeah.
Tough Enough Brown. And I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know
yeah,
what
yeah, familiar.
it's telling me. Do not sync with my taste. I got record box open for some reason. I haven't removed anything. So I got them on the show to do a mix. The Rhythm Masters, which is Steve Mack,
Yeah.
who's now huge, and Robert, I can't say his name, but he's little WHO, runs he's enormous now. I gave them their first break on the show, and but loads. There are quite a few people that need to tick that.
So that's obviously we've covered the UK and Peach. You must have toured a lot as well. So I've
Yeah.
got here, I don't know whether it's right, you played in 170 cities across 50 countries. Is that roughly accurate?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was. I
Hell.
I actually think I wrote that. I counted the cities and I counted the countries, and yeah, when I look back, I go, wow, did I do all that?
Yeah, like a
I mean,
dream.
it's still that in comparison to say what Sasha and Digweed or Coxie does, but yeah, I never saw it coming. Yeah, wondered how I got those gigs. Yeah, it was incredible. I certainly couldn't do it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've done 5 trips back already this year. One more to come, which is November 22. I'm literally in and out. I fly in on November 19, leave on 20. No, yeah, flying on 19 on the Thursday. On the Saturday's Peach and Strawberry Sunday at Fabric. Then I fly out the Monday, and then I'm playing Pattaya on the Friday and Bangkok on the Saturday when I come back. But yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, I mean, it was a buzz. It was a fucking buzz. It was, and of course you accrued, like I accrued enough air miles. I did 8 transatlantics just on my air miles, I remember. And then I had 3 incredible holidays with then girlfriends. All because like in my right, the only thing that was in my rider was sober. I mean, one time I played in Canada, it was Winnipeg, and the promoter picked me up. He said, "I can't believe you're rider," because I was for America. I was with Most Wanted then, North America and Canada, and I said, "What's my rider?" And he gave it to me, and I went, I just ripped it up. I said, I didn't write that. I said, all I want is sober driver to meet me at the airport, meet me at the hotel, to take me to the club on time, take me back to the hotel, and then to make sure I get to the hotel for to the airport for the flight home. That's all I want. And yeah, I was going somewhere with that, and I've forgotten.
No, so
But
you weren't
yeah,
you
no,
weren't elaborate, and you didn't take it too far. I mean,
Oh yes, oh yeah. The hotel had to be in the Hilton group because I had to collect. Cause as Bruce Forsyth used to say, points make prizes, and they did. So all my Hilton points, I had 3 great holidays. Just on my Hilton points. So
fantastic. One thing I don't
yeah.
know about much, about your career is your production and releases. And I know you have a studio because you're sitting in there right now. Can you
Yeah.
tell me more about your success and your story behind labels and what you've
Did
produced?
you think I was a successful producer? I don't. I always found it a chore. So, okay. I started remixing 94, 95. It wasn't something that I had to do because I had the radio show. So now, of course, if you want to be a superstar DJ now, you either have a silly haircut and become Ibiza, whatever that guy's name was. Ibiza, the computer
Oh, well,
game. You
final
know the
boss.
guy.
Yeah,
Right,
final
final boss.
boss. Yeah.
Yeah, or you produce. And if you don't produce, you're never going to get a gig because the days of being technically genius, like Eddie Halliwell or James Abelia back in the day, I mean, they were, they were, they were incredible,
Yes.
amazing technical DJs.
Yes.
Now,
Totally agree.
you have to produce, and you look at any flyer in any town, in any city, in any country in the world, whether it's Oliver Gillespie or Enrique Sangliano or whoever, they're producers. D. Knox and Beckers is how we know these people. So you have to produce. I did it because I got asked to do a couple of remixes. So my engineer, she lived round the corner from me. I can't remember how I found her. Helen, her name was, and it was on Cubase. And
Yeah.
um, and I obviously went. I was there from the beginning to the end, and I took my ideas. But she engineered it all. And then Dino Lenny became my engineer producer. Um, and there's no way that someone like me with 0 production skills, and it's the same, there's, a lot of DJs out there now with their tracks. They're all ghost,
Yeah.
not they're all, but many that you have ghost
Yeah,
producers.
I've
I
had this
know
conversation
3 or
with several DJs, and to be honest, I don't think there's anything wrong with having an engineer and you getting the ideas from your
no,
head.
there isn't. Yeah,
Absolutely,
no, there
bringing your records
isn't.
along.
But
I
what
want
is
something like
wrong?
this. What is wrong is someone creating a track and you taking ownership of it. That's ghost
Yeah, what is wrong
producing.
is you send the engineer the tracks and say, I want something like this. And you don't even go to the fucking studio. It was probably the most tiring thing that I ever did because I was not hands on. Helen would sit here, I would be over here and just watching, listening. And those sessions were, 10, 12
Did
hours.
you enjoy it?
and then it was tiring, but yes, I did. Yeah, I did enjoy, but I stupidly didn't try and learn from it because I never thought that I was capable of doing it on my own. And then when I moved out of London, down to near Brighton, 2004, I'd broken up with my girlfriend, and I thought, I've got to learn to do this. So I bought that G5 with the big handles. I bought Logic. I bought it's like nice studio setup. John Fleming and Adam White were instrumental in.
Down in
John would
Brighton.
come round.
Yep.
I would go. Yeah,
Yep. I spoke to John
I
the
would
other
go to
day.
John's.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's such a lovely guy,
And
and
he
he was
really
so
learned the
helpful.
trade, didn't he? He really learned how to make the sounds and everything. I had a really good chat with him about it, and I spoke to him in Ibiza, and how he learned. So he was a big influence on the way you learn.
Yeah, as well as just I was, what's the word? Celibate for 3 years, other than one fuck in 3 years, and I lived in my studio. I had to do this, or my career was done because when Peach got kicked out of Coco, and then after Studio 33, new program controller went into Kiss, and all of us, all the specialist DJs, got sacked. So it was end of my career, or I go back to working fucking 18 hours a day again. And that's what I did. So I was like every day learning. And then I would send them to Adam White. He would maybe tweak them, or Fleming would tweak them. Then I got a lot of the early stuff signed to Discover, which was quite a big trance label back then. But I think the biggest track that I ever did was, I'm in Ibiza at Sakapaya, that beautiful monastery where
Beautiful restaurant.
we're going to go this year. Phone to book a table under new ownership.
Yep.
£150 per head minimum spend at Sakapaya these days. But I was there. I went every week, and I was there with Michelle. Arguably certainly one of the loves of my life. And when we were talking, and this tune came on, and I just said, Michelle, shut the fuck up. What's this tune? And I ran over to the maitre d', and he said, Graham, I play every time you'll come in. We play this, and it was Brian Eno, the ending. And he wrote down, and it was from his 1980 Apollo album, and he wrote it down. And when I got back to England, went to HMV or whatever, I bought the album, and I went to Helen and I said, we have to do this track. And I think it was PK who completely replayed the main melody. And yeah, we put it out as Brian Eno's publishers would not fucking clear the publishing, so we couldn't release it properly. But we sold 20,000 on a white label. I had 4 emails from Ministry, from the label, we want to sign this. And I said, then please talk to Eno's publishers. And they did, because again, I didn't get Radio 1. This was one track that I'd written. Brian Eno wrote, I recreated it, but Trance, because the original I use in my sometimes in my sunset sets here. If I'm going to get that, it's like, it's complete ambient, and it's one of the most beautiful pieces of music. It comes up in films sometimes, and it was also used in the, I don't know where this come from, in the opening of the London Olympic Games. I don't know why they didn't use it at the end, because it was called the ending. Anyway, and yeah, and God knows what would have happened if that could have got signed. And then I moved here, Thailand.
Okay, so the Thailand chapter. Now this is a chapter I'm quite interested in. What made you move?
Email.
An email.
Um,
Was it from?
literally, literally, I'd been going to college for 3 years up until then, learning Spanish. Only because traveling in all those across the world, most English people think that everyone in the world speaks English, and obviously a lot more do now. But if you were to be in Ibiza or Spain in the mid-90s, anyone over 30 would not speak one word of English.
Mm.
And obviously they don't speak Spanish in China or Japan or Southeast Asia, where I also played an awful lot. But it is the second most spoken language in the world if you forget Mandarin, which is number one by default because the billions of Chinese. It's English and Spanish. I woke up one Monday morning. Say Kiss had gone, Peach had gone, Korea. And there was an email from a friend of mine said just bought a dive school in Thailand. So I said, "Oh, whereabouts?" She said, "Koh Phangan." I said, "Never heard of it," but I'd actually booked to come here, Koh Phangan, in 2002 with my then girlfriend Michelle, and I had got a late gig at Pasha for New Year's Eve, Pasha in Sharm el Sheikh, and there were no. And I said, if you want me to play, my girlfriend has to come. It's New Year's, so there were no scheduled flights. They were all full. So we had to do the charter. And in those days, all pre-EasyJet and pre-Ryanair and blah, 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 blah. It was once a week. And it happened to be on Christmas Day. So we ended up being there for 2 weeks. And then on the day after, on the 27th, because the tsunami was on the Boxing Day, we read this terrible news. And I said to Michelle, we've had a 2-week holiday here. I'm not sure that I want to go to a country where 20,000 people have just died. So I cancelled it. Anyway, so I said, okay, Koh Phangan. I said, what can X buy me? I kind of worked out quickly in my head what I could sell the house for, and he just wrote back paradise. Well, okay. I think I want to go and look at paradise because I'm a Cancerian, so was the reason, one of the reasons why I moved to Brighton, just to be near the sea. Wasn't the real reason was a much more horrible thing, but so I got a gig in Pattaya the first Saturday. Some people call it Pattaya. The Thais call it Pattaya because anything that ends with an A is a R, like Honda,
Yeah.
Lompreya. And then Bangkok the following week. And I came to Koh Phangan to have a look at paradise. And, certainly got to Pattaya. I thought, fuck, this ain't paradise. Flew to Samui. Got the little minibus from the airport to the pier. I'm looking at Koh Samui. This isn't paradise. It's like 2-lane traffic and everyone and then my friend picked me up at Tong Salar, which is our main port here. And it's north to south is 15 minutes. And I was staying in Charlotte Land for that week, and it was pre-Russian invasion. So now we have the Russian invasion and the Israeli invasion on the island. But it was November, and it was fucking deserted. There was no one here. And in fact, funny enough, I said to somebody the other day, wouldn't it be great if you could get drone footage from 15, 17 years ago and then do one now? Because now that the Koh Phangan's developing, we actually have traffic lights. We have 4 sets of fucking traffic lights on the island. Back then, we didn't have any. A traffic jam was stuck behind a drunk Thai person at midday driving in the middle of the road, indicating to go round a bend like that. There's not even a corner.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we drove to Charlotte Lamb, and I thought, you know what? I've worked my arse off since I was 13 years old. You know, I had paper round, milk round, delivering coal light, bags of fuel, and, you know, work. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'm 50, 50, what was I? 50, 53. I thought, all right. And it's quite funny because I was talking to Slipmat yesterday, and he's kind of 56, and you know, he's still well, he's as busy as he ever was.
Yeah,
But yeah, I thought, you know what, kind of had my career, but I still wanted to DJ. So both the gigs in Bangkok and Pattaya said, yeah, if I moved, I would get once a month. So financially, that kind of worked. But it was just like getting on a plane, but this time I wasn't coming back. My daughter came to see me off, and, you know, that was a bit that was tearful. Yeah, and that's it. But if I'd thought about it, I'd probably know now. If I could put the time back now, I'd probably go Portugal or somewhere like that, which is you're in Europe, it's so near. Portugal's cheap. And you know, and you've got the weather. Obviously, you know, our winter, we don't have winter, we have dry season, rainy season, and now we're in October, and now it's 29 degrees still. So, you know, sometimes I've sat on my terrace eating lunch and dinner, and I thought, like, no, fuck, it's a bit cold. I'm gonna get my hoodie, and I've looked at the thermometer, and it's 24 degrees, and I think,
yeah,
fuck, I'm
yeah.
freezing.
I'm guilty of that in Croatia as well. It gets as soon as it starts dipping, you're like, oof, bit chilly here. And you know, looking at the temperature, it's in mid
Do you
20s.
you live in Croatia?
I live in Croatia, yes.
See, I've never been, but I want to go
You're
badly.
welcome over anytime, Graham. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. And some of the most special people over here. I come over here because of the festival scene, and just met a girl, and just had a little boy, and just ended up staying because England wasn't my thing anymore.
Congratulations.
England wasn't my thing anymore. I've been doing the raving. Ibiza, I'd lived in for a long time, and I was drinking too much, and I stopped
That's what I thought. I
drinking.
thought you were in Ibiza now.
Yeah, no, I do. My business is in Ibiza, obviously, but I came to Croatia when I saw the VIP thing really hitting Ibiza, and they banned the morning parties, and they banned this, they banned that, and it was just making it very difficult for independent promoters to do anything, and I kind of got out, and it was kind of at the same time as when my drinking was getting bad. I think I was drinking to soothe the financial losses, and I went to
Yeah,
Croatia,
I
finished
get that.
drinking, but still continued doing things more productively in Ibiza because I had a clear head. Um, and it's a beautiful country with beautiful people, so I'm happy here. I've just got to learn the fucking language because
Yeah,
it's so
this is what.
complicated. How's that?
This is what I've heard. It's beautiful. I've heard the people are awesome. Do they speak English? I guess they
In
exist.
impeccable English, impeccable, and it's especially this generation as well. Not the older generations, like you were saying, in Spain, but now it's become quite a tourist hotspot. Croatian is a very difficult, complex language to learn. And also it's very accessible by car. So you get people from Sweden, Austria, Germany, Netherlands, England. Everyone drives here, and it's very continental. So the universal language, obviously, you've got Italy over the water, all the Slavic languages as well. So they kind of use English as the universal language, which is great for
Well,
me, but not
English
good.
is it.
Yeah, not for good. It's not good for learning though. If you're trying to pick up a
No,
language,
no.
yeah.
Um, Listen, for my sins, I've never learned Thai. I can say the pleasantries, but I can't have a conversation. And I know I should, but like you're saying with the language in Croatia, Thai is also extremely difficult to learn. and even difficult to say. Like, you know, people say Koh Phangan, but it's not. It's actually Koh Phangan. Because
Yeah.
yeah, and I really do need to make an effort, but my priority would be if I had an hour a day like I did in COVID. I had all this 2 years of free time, 18 months free time. I started went back to my Spanish because I had gone to college for 3 years to learn that. But when did you move there? When did you move to Croatia?
8 years ago, 9 years ago, fully.
Has it gone up like
In
massively?
price,
Because Koh Phangan,
yeah,
yeah.
it's developed. It's unfortunately they made a bad move, in my personal opinion, and went from their own currency, which was the kuna, and they didn't went into the euro, and it went from an affordable country to now a pretty. I would say it's not. It's a non. It's quite an expensive country now to come to, and
Not
and
as Ibiza or not?
no, not like Ibiza, but the clubs say the drinks are half the price of Ibiza and stuff like that. But for example, it's interesting you bring this up because I noticed this only a couple of days ago. I took my little boy just to get some chips from the local kebab shop. We've only got one or two shops in here that are still open. When I got back, and I noticed I was paying more in euros here than I did in Ibiza. So I was just like, fucking hell, you know? And and then I started looking at the restaurant prices and I was like, yeah, these are Ibiza prices. Whereas when it was in Kuna, it would be much, much cheaper. So they've got greedy, basically.
So when I moved here, whilst I was looking for land to build this villa, I was paying 8,000 baht a month rent. So, and that was when my English pound was buying 62 baht. So, eight thousand, 100 was about 130 pound a month rent, right?
Hmm.
In baht. So now the English pound buys 43, 44, sometimes 42. It did drop to 39. But now that same house, 35,000 baht a month to rent. And at the new price, that's about 900, 850 quid a month for a one bedroom thing, which is actually more expensive than England, than London.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm making the comparison, that, you know, I'm just thinking of, you know, it's a one bedroom house with a little kitchen and a little, this is here, and a little bathroom. Yeah, it's much square feet is much smaller than what you would get in England, but because and now the build, as I said earlier about if you could do a drone, the whole island's massively developed. There must be
It's a
now,
tourist
God,
hotspot.
there's 50 villas being built down there. There's there's probably ongoing at the moment 300 new villas being built on an island that's north to south 15, 18 minutes, east to west 20 minutes. So the population used to be 11,000, now it's 19. Very I'd say probably the Farang with Farang with the Westerners tourists. I would say might even outnumber the locals, actually,
Okay.
maybe.
Interesting.
But yeah, so everything's gone up, and you know, and a beer used to be, yeah, you could you in, you know, even in the club, we never had clubs, but we were always Southeast Asia's Ibiza, but without Space, Pasha, Ushuaia, Universe, High, whatever. But we had a real underground scene here, and of course, most it was all open air. But a beer used to be 60 baht now, so, and then when the pound was buying 60, that was about 60 baht, 50p. And now they're 100 baht. So, and now with the baht it's like £2.20. Marlboro Lights used to be 50 baht. Now they're 158 baht. So
Yeah.
they've really gone up. But we're lucky with the fuel prices though. It's like 37 baht a litre, so 75p a litre, something like that.
Yeah, we're very fortunate
So
on other.
can I come stay with you?
We've got loads of places here. Of course you can, mate. We've got loads of room.
Go.
Loads of room.
All
You're
right.
quite well. You're
I'm
quite
back in
welcome to.
April. I'm back in April because we got Ministry on April 4. Then I got a vinyl gig on April 10. On April 4, 11, 10. Then April 12 is this Dexter Jones Sound of Philadelphia concert. But I haven't booked my flight, so maybe what's the weather like in April?
It's lovely. It's becoming spring. It's my favourite time of year.
Cool.
It's just getting nice and warm now. I would love it to be like that all year round, you know. But when it hits June,
what's winters like then?
Okay, not too bad. We get a lot of we get a lot of days of sun, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be hot. We get ferocious storms because we have a big mountain range behind us that brings in the pressure drops and it brings in this horrendous wind called Buuren. But yeah, no, the weather's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a lovely little island.
Average winter temperature.
Couldn't tell you. I'd have to WhatsApp you on that one. Do you find you play a lot? Obviously, you DJ a lot in Thailand.
Yeah.
How often are you playing in these days locally?
I'm probably not playing. I kind of last year decided, you know what? I'm not sure that I wanna. I wanted to cut down on my gigs. And you know we have we got Peter G, David Chong, Tino Moreno. They're probably the three most popular. I kind of don't even really. I probably am going to be in the top 10 maybe. Dara Casey's just come back. He's popular. But yeah, and I was doing Full Moon because they had a techno stage, but they just closed that because the bars don't make so much money, and people were buying the alcohol in the 7-Elevens and drinking it on the beach. So I play, and then I do my sunset set every Monday at Grasshopper, but it's only on Zen Beach, which I love. It's 4 hours in the summer, 3 hours in the winter, but the last one's this Monday, and then going to close for 6 weeks because the island really kind of does go quiet in November. And I got my favourites like Seaboard, which is coming up, I hope in the next couple of weeks, where you get to play 6.5 hours open till close, and I love
Fantastic.
that.
Fantastic.
I spent a lot of my time when I was in England in the days when I had nothing to do, and even actually when I flew back into Bangkok and I had 3 days in Pattaya before the gig, I forgot what's kept me going my whole career is I forgot 1830 clubbing mentality, and I got stuck in this, and I still love it. Melodic house, progressive, but it's not what the 1830-year-olds want. My friend went to a Sasha and Digweed gig recently. He said everyone was 45 and up. So, and I even said on show, does it mean that this awesome music is just for old people? There's a guy, Alan. When I always join this gym when I'm leisure centre when I'm go back to England, Alan, and I call him Alan the Raver personal trainer, right?
Okay.
And he's 27, and he and his mates, they go clubbing pretty much every weekend, and yeah, and we would, and I, what are you? Who are the art DJs that you go and specifically? And he sent me this list. I said, please, and I'm never heard of it. I thought, fuck, and deep house is as big is like a huge thing, and obviously tech houses, but I do struggle with tech house because I just find it so similar. But then the people who love tech house can say, "Oh, melodic house is all the same." But I just love the melodies. So I'm now I'm reinventing myself again, and you can hear it in my Estela Musica radio shows. And I invented my own genre. It's called Cool House, which is not deep house, it's not progressive house, it's not techno. It's somewhere that fits in, like, as long as it's not cheesy. I have a problem with cheese. And of course, and that makes it even harder with the 1830 mentality, because a lot of them do like cheese.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I hear DJs on this island who I really respect, and I thought, fuck, I wouldn't play that. When one of my trips back, I lost this little baby, my original hard drive, and they found it luckily. So of course I bought a second one, out Maine, which is my new stuff. But I've been sitting here for hours every day going through this drive back to 2008, 2010, listening and listening, thinking, yeah, this works. This still sounds brilliant now. Because I was on Beatport the other day and Track Source for 3-4 hours, and I just didn't find anything that I liked. And then I started on my promos. I get 200, every day, probably 50, 60 email promos. And I was actually finding better stuff on there, but
Mm. Because they're more
because
selected,
the
aren't they?
category.
They're more selected by people because they don't want to send you shit, do they? So with the promos,
Yeah, but then you get the offer to, do you want, from these big companies that handle all the labels. You join, like InFlight, for example, and they'll sign up a label, and there's a label you'll pay to go on InFlight because they have access to the mailing list, and you don't know. So I only actually started doing it yesterday. If I go, oh, you have an invite from whatever record label, so then I go into Beatport and I put the label in, and I'd start seeing what their releases are. And if it's not what I want to play, then I decline it. And when I get tracks on promo, if I get two consecutively from the same label that is just not what I play, I unsubscribe, because it just takes my time up, listening
because
to
there is so
shit
much
that I'm
music
never
out
gonna.
there. There is so much music out
Yeah.
there now, and it's really weird that you're on about the 18 to 30 mentality, because I slipped into that as well. Like, when I'm walking around, I don't listen to a lot of new music, but I do pay attention to what they play at the clubs down on our island, because we have 5 super clubs on the beach, and I listen to what people are playing on their balconies. And because there's a lot of continental people driving, I listen to what people are playing in their cars going past, and I'm just like, ooh, it's so different. These tastes are so different now from what I would have called cool music, and a lot of it does sound very commercial and cheesy, you know. Um, so yeah,
What are they playing in those 5 clubs
they play.
on a weekend?
Obviously, it's a little bit different because they have festivals. So festivals bring their own sound. So they have Hideout,
Yeah,
who'll
right.
bring techno, deep house, drum and bass. Then we'll have Sonus at the end of the season, which is Time Warp, pure techno. Barracuda, a bit of techno, which is it's Italian festival, and then you'll get these German, Austrian type festivals. But then it goes EDM-y, very EDM-y. So yeah, and that's where the commercial side of it is. But the demographic is a lot younger here. It's not. It's like 16, 17, 18 to early 20s. Because it's so accessible, they can get here easily from the mainland and stuff like that. So, but it's a very good entry point for people who want to come to clubbing at a very the venues are amazing. They are absolutely stunning. So, yeah, it's a good entry point for them to then move on to Ibiza. But yeah, I wish there was a bit more. There's no classic stuff. There's no there has been trance here. Paul van Dyk's been here with Shine. There's been some other things here, but it's the more EDM-y stuff that seems to be the popular, walk-in music.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's not for me, And they're all open air clubs. I can hear the bass line on my terrace when I'm getting up in the morning. So it's 24-hour a day open air clubbing. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Wow.
I love the
So
concept.
like here that like the parties say like jungle or waterfall, Oxa, they're 10 till 6, jungle and Oxa and Half Moon that 10 till 6. They're actually in the they are all in the jungle, but the villagers can hear it. And so there's going to be a clampdown. It's already started a little bit that they've got. I don't whether it'll end up like Ibiza in 93,
Man, put all the
94,
roofs
where,
on. A roof on a jungle.
roof on. Yeah. I don't know how they're going to do it,
Well,
but it'll be
fortunately for
interesting.
us, we have this beach that is tucked away, and it's called Zurcher Beach. And it does have some issues with the neighbours across the water, at a particular village, but it is a huge primary form of income, and they only have a very short season here, so they don't have to put up for it for long. So it's like June, July,
Yeah.
August, end of August. It's literally dead because then we get the winds start and the rain start. So it's a very short window. So I think they kind of put up with it,
Yeah.
So, and they do have limiters. And they all do very, very well out of their accommodation bookings. So, and
Yeah, I bet.
most of the families in these towns, they own all the accommodation, you see. So it's all on Airbnb, and they're making very good money from these
Right.
people. So it's a bit of whereas Ibiza, it's hotels, Here, it's apartments,
Yeah.
private. So I think that's a big reason why we can get away with it.
Then, also in Ibiza, I was reading, that most of the workers, from chefs to waitresses, they're living in tents this year. They just can't afford the accom. It's just insane. But 60-70% of Croatia's GDP must be tourism, no?
Yeah. There's very much so, very, very much so. So they're quite lenient on it, and they have other festival locations that are open air as well, and they're bringing in vast amount of money, especially with the English festivals, because they're the spenders.
I gotta get a gig there. I gotta get a gig there in one of the festivals next year.
Yeah, I
Actually, maybe
haven't
I'll
actually
come
got much
May night.
involvement with the festivals here nowadays, unfortunately. I wanted to, but then I just saw the demographic was so young, Graham, and I'm not really involved in that scene anymore. Maybe
I
one day.
wasn't. I wasn't pushed there. I honestly
No,
wasn't
no, no, I
pushing.
know, no, I know, but I'm sure it's going to happen. I'm sure it's going to happen because it's everything evolves. Final question, anyway. If you could play one last
Yeah.
track to close a set, would you have one?
I mean, people ask, what's your? Well, actually, yeah. I think because I play it as a not as a as I play it, providing I'm already in this groove, so it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb, and I'm not going, "Fuck you, follow this to the next DJ," because I have way more respect. It's just a tune that everyone goes mental to, and I guess some people are expecting me to say like Joe Smooth Promised Land or
Yeah.
something like that. You know, it could be a million tunes. You know, it could be Johnny Nash. I can see clearly now. It could
Hmm.
be yeah, whatever. But Jerome Isma 80, and it's Opium from 2019, and my son turned me on. I've met Jerome. He played here at Half Moon some years ago, and I was already playing a load of his tracks. So it's Jerome Isma and then hyphen 80.
I'll have a
But I
dig.
hadn't heard this. I hadn't heard this track, and Ben said, "Dad, it's 1 2 6 1 2 6. I play at 1 3 5 in all the sets I do open till close, like where he does 6.5, 7, 8 hour sets, and I play and and I play because no one else on the island is playing this tune, and it's so simple, but it's just got this one little breakdown where it goes, and then it goes, and then and the crowd go fucking insane. And
Yes,
so it's
that's what
like
you need.
I can't. I remember actually recently the other day. Well, can you play one more? And I went, no, I can't follow this tune. So, Jerome is my opium. Would
Brilliant.
be
I'm so
my
glad you
closing
have a
track.
final tune for me, because a lot of the time it's difficult for DJs to pinpoint. But Graham, I really want to thank you for your time. We've done literally 3 hours now, I think, total,
Wow,
over the
fuck.
2 different parts. But I want to thank you for your time and all your efforts over the years with music. And as I said, you were the
Thank
first
you.
DJ I actually knew outside of the Strawberry Sunday environment. So yeah, it's been a pleasure, and obviously I've got to meet you since. So thank you very much, and I will be catching up with you again very, very soon, of course.